The stars were cold and distant as the Meridani fleet limped through space. Their once beautiful ships with hulls that gleamed like polished crystal now showed cracks and scorch marks. Admiral Zatvek stood at the command center of the largest vessel, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the dim emergency lights. The displays around him showed the same grim news: fuel reserves at 12%, weapon systems at 30%, and still no safe haven in sight. "Admiral, the civilian carriers are requesting permission to reduce speed. Their engines cannot maintain this pace," said his second-in-command. Dutvex's inner lights pulsed with worry. The fleet carried the last 300,000 survivors of their species. Behind them, less than a day's travel away, the Void Swarm followed, a relentless enemy that had already consumed their homeworld and 3 colony systems. "Permission denied. If we slow, we die," Zatvek said. His voice resonated through the crystal panels of the bridge. "The young ones and the knowledge banks must survive, even if we do not." In another part of the galaxy, Captain Ella Martinez, of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon, yawned and stretched in her command chair. Her ship was 6 months into its mission to map the edges of the Orion Arm, and the crew was getting restless with the routine. "Captain, I'm picking up some unusual signals," said Communications Officer Ben Adams, his fingers moving quickly over his console. "It doesn't match any known pattern in our database." Martinez walked to his station, her interest piqued. "Show me." The signal pattern flickered on the screen, complex and clearly artificial but unlike anything in human records. "Location?" she asked, suddenly alert. "About 2 light days from our position, near the Procyon sector," replied Adams. Martinez tapped her fingers on the console edge, thinking. Their mission parameters allowed for investigation of potential first contact scenarios, but also cautioned against unnecessary risks. "It could be a natural phenomenon," suggested Science Officer Liam Jackson, joining them at the communications station. "That's not natural," Martinez said firmly. "Those are distress patterns. I've studied enough communication protocols to recognize a cry for help, regardless of the language." She returned to her chair and made her decision. "Plot a course to the signal source, maximum safe speed." "Captain, protocol suggests we should report this to Earth Command first," the first officer said quietly. Martinez nodded. "Send the report. But we're not waiting for a response. Someone out there needs help, and we might be their only chance." She turned to the helm. "Engage." The Horizon changed course, its powerful engines pushing it toward the unknown signal. As they traveled, the communications team worked to decode the alien patterns. After 16 hours, they had enough for a basic translation matrix. "They're running from something," Adams reported. "The same word keeps appearing. I think it translates roughly to devourers or consumers." The Horizon dropped out of FTL travel at a safe distance from the signal source. The main view screen showed a scattered formation of ships, hundreds of them, some massive, others small. All showed signs of damage. "My God," whispered Martinez. "It's an entire civilization on the move." "Captain, we're being scanned," reported the tactical officer. "Multiple targeting systems are locking onto us." Martinez stood up. "Open a channel, broad spectrum. Let's introduce ourselves before they get nervous." The frightened Meridani fleet watched as the unknown ship appeared at the edge of their sensor. "Ugh." Admiral Zatvek studied the vessel through the main viewer. It was unlike any ship he had seen before. No crystal structures, no geometric perfection. It was built with metals and composites, with odd angles and protrusions. "Is it one of them? A new form?" asked his second. "No," Zatvek said slowly. "The swarm ships always carry some element of our design twisted and corrupted. This is something new." His tactical officer reported. "They're broadcasting a signal, Admiral. It appears to be a greeting." Hope, an emotion long abandoned, flickered briefly in Zatvek's core. "Respond. Tell them we come in peace but are in urgent need of assistance." On the horizon, Martinez listened to the translated response. "They call themselves the Meridani," Adams reported. "They're refugees. Their home systems have been destroyed by something called the Void Swarm. Before Martinez could respond, the ship's sensors blared an alarm. "Captain, high energy signatures. At the system edge," called out the sensor officer. "Something just dropped out of FTL and it's moving fast." The view screen shifted to show a new arrival. A ship that seemed to be made of darkness itself, with pulsing veins of sickly purple light running through its irregular form. "The aliens are broadcasting warnings," Adams said urgently. "They say that's a scout for the Void Swarm." Martinez didn't hesitate. "Red alert. Shields up, weapons online. Warn the alien fleet to stand clear." The Void Swarm scout approached rapidly, ignoring the Meridani ships and focusing on the new target. It seemed confused by the horizon's unfamiliar design, pausing briefly to analyze, before attacking. That pause gave Martinez the opening she needed. "Fire everything we've got," she ordered. The horizon's advanced Earth weaponry lashed out. Plasma beams, quantum torpedoes, and railgun rounds tore into the scout ship. To everyone's surprise, the enemy vessel couldn't adapt quickly enough to the unfamiliar weapons. It shuddered under the assault, dark pieces breaking off into space. "It's transmitting," shouted the tactical officer. "Massive data burst. Cut it off," Martinez commanded. But it was too late. The transmission ended just as the scout ship exploded into fragments. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. "What did we just get ourselves into?" Martinez whispered, staring at the debris. Admiral Zutvex watched in amazement as the unknown ship destroyed the Void Swarm scout. In 9 years of running, he had never seen a scout destroyed so easily. "Make contact with them immediately," he ordered, his inner lights pulsing rapidly with excitement. On the horizon, Martinez received the incoming transmission. The translated voice of Admiral Zutvex filled the bridge. "Unknown vessel, you have done the impossible. The Void Swarm has pursued us across 27 systems. You are the first to destroy one of their ships without massive casualties. Who are you?" Martinez took a deep breath before responding. "This is Captain Ella Martinez of the Earth vessel Horizon. We come from a planet called Earth, and it seems we've arrived just in time." She knew that with the scout's transmission, Earth had just been revealed to a new enemy. There was no turning back now. "Admiral, I believe we have a lot to discuss," she said, "and not much time to do it." 3 weeks passed quickly. Captain Martinez stood at the viewport of her quarters aboard the Horizon, watching as Earth ships appeared one by one in the distance. Each flash of light brought another powerful vessel into the system. The Earth fleet had arrived. The largest ship, the dreadnought Artemis, moved into position near the horizon. Its massive hull dwarfed Martinez's exploration vessel. On its side, the flag of United Earth gleamed against the dark metal. "Captain, Admiral Patel requests permission to come aboard," said Ben Adams over the comm system. "Permission granted. I'll meet him in the main docking bay," Martinez replied. Admiral Gregory Patel was a tall man with dark skin and silver hair that contrasted with his black uniform. His face was serious but kind as he stepped onto the horizon with 4 officers behind him. "Captain Martinez," he said, shaking her hand firmly. "Earth Command has read your reports. I must say, you found us quite an interesting situation." Martinez nodded. "Thank you for coming, Admiral. To be honest, I wasn't sure Earth would send help." "We had little choice," Patel said as they walked toward the conference room. "If these Void Swarm creatures can wipe out entire civilizations, they would eventually find Earth. Better to face them here with allies than alone at home." In the conference room, Admiral Zutvex waited with 2 other Meridani. Their crystalline bodies caught the light and broke it into tiny rainbows across the walls. The tallest one, Zutvex, stepped forward. "Admiral Patel of Earth," Zutvex said, his translated voice sounding slightly mechanical. "Your people honor us with your presence. We feared we would face extinction alone." The 2 leaders studied each other, one a human with warm flesh and blood, the other a being of living crystal, with inner lights that pulsed with each word. They were as different as 2 species could be, yet both understood the gravity of the moment. "The enemy of my friend is my enemy," Patel said simply. "Now, let's talk about how we can fight these Void Swarm creatures together." The meeting lasted hours as the Meridani shared everything they knew about the swarm. They told of how the swarm had appeared suddenly in their home system, consuming everything in its path. The swarm didn't just destroy, it absorbed, learned, and grew stronger with each victory. Their ships are partly biological and partly mechanical, Zetvex explained. They adapt to our weapons after a few uses. That is why we could never defeat them. They simply evolved to counter our tactics. But they couldn't adapt to our weapons, Martinez pointed out. At least not quickly enough. Admiral Patel leaned forward with interest. Tell me more about that. Over the next few days, human engineers and scientists worked closely with their Meridani counterparts. Among them was Lieutenant Ryan Foster, a weapons specialist known for thinking outside the box. He was assigned to work with Clavora, the lead Meridani scientist. Foster watched in fascination as Clavora manipulated a crystal control panel with just the touch of her crystalline fingers. The Meridani technology was elegant, precise, and beautiful. Your systems are amazing, Foster said. The way you use crystal matrices to store and process data, it's years beyond what we can do. Clavora's inner lights flickered, and what Foster had learned was a sign of modesty. Yet your weapons destroyed a swarm scout when our best efforts failed. How is this possible? Foster smiled. I think it's because we're messy. Messy? Clavora tilted her head, not understanding. Humans don't always take the most efficient path. We try things that sometimes don't make sense. We're unpredictable, Foster explained. The swarm learned to counter your logical, efficient attacks, but our weapons and tactics follow different rules. As they talked, Dr. Olivia Ramirez entered the lab carrying a sealed container. Inside was a small piece of the destroyed swarm. Scout, you'll want to see this, Ramirez said, placing the container on the table. Through the clear top, they could see what looked like black metal with thin purple veins running through it. The veins pulsed slowly as if still alive. It's still active? Foster asked, alarmed. In a way, Ramirez said. The swarm isn't just a fleet of ships. It's one organism spread across many vessels. This piece is trying to connect to the main body, but can't. What's interesting is how it works. She pulled up scan results on a nearby screen. The swarm absorbs and copies. See these components? They're modified versions of Meridani technology. The swarm didn't invent. It stole and changed. Clavora's lights dimmed with sadness. Our own creations turned against us. But that gives us an advantage, Ramirez continued. The swarm expects attacks based on what it's seen before. It's never encountered humans until now. Meanwhile, on Ixin, the bridge of the Artemis, Admiral Patel watched as human and Meridani ships ran combat drills together. The styles couldn't be more different. The Meridani ships moved in perfect, precise formations. Beautiful to watch, but predictable. The human vessels seemed chaotic by comparison, changing direction suddenly and rarely maintaining the same pattern. Twice. They need to learn from each other, Patel said to Zetvex, who stood beside him. Your precision with our unpredictability. That combination might be enough to confuse the swarm. Before Zetvex could answer, alarms sounded throughout the ship. Swarm vessels detected, called out the tactical officer. 3 small ships approaching. The civilian sector. Zetovex's lights flashed with fear. The civilian ships have minimal defenses. They hold our children in knowledge banks. Patel didn't hesitate. Launch fighters, battle groups 2 and 3 intercept. Tell the Meridani ships to pull the civilians back while we engage. The battle was short, but fierce. The swarm ships, expecting the usual Meridani tactics, were unprepared for the human assault. Earth fighters swooped in from multiple angles, never attacking the same way twice. When the swarm began to adapt to energy weapons, the humans switched to kinetic rounds. When shields came up against those, explosive charges followed. From the bridge of the Artemis, Admiral Zetvex watched in amazement. In just 15 minutes, all 3 swarm ships were destroyed with only minor damage to 2 human vessels. In 9 years, Zetvex said quietly, we have never won so decisively. Patel placed a hand on the crystal shoulder of his new ally. This was just the beginning. Those were only scouts. The main swarm will come now, and in much greater numbers. On the main view screen, the remains of the swarm ships drifted in space. For the first time in nearly a decade, the Meridani had witnessed not just survival but victory. Small perhaps, but significant. "We must prepare," Zatvex said, new determination in his voice. "Yes," Patel agreed. "But now we prepare together." Across the fleet, both species worked with renewed purpose. Human unpredictability and innovation combined with Meridani precision and advanced technology. For the first time since the swarm had appeared, there was something new in the air. Hope. The largest Meridani Ark ship had been converted into a joint command center. Maps and holographic displays filled the central chamber as human and Meridani officers moved around the space, working together with growing ease. At the center table, Admiral Patel and Admiral Zatvex studied the latest intelligence reports. "The swarm is moving more cautiously now," Patel noted, pointing to the red markers on the star map. "They're sending more scouts but keeping the main force back." Zatvex's inner lights pulsed thoughtfully. "They are learning about you, adapting to your methods as they did to ours." Lieutenant Commander Alex Kennedy, a tactical officer known for his brilliant mind, approached the table. He was young for his rank, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Admirals, I have a proposal," Kennedy said, placing a data pad on the table. "We've been reacting to the swarm, running or fighting small battles. I suggest we take control of this war." Both admirals turned their attention to the young officer. Kennedy activated the pad, showing a complex battle plan. "The swarm hunts us because we run," Kennedy explained. "What if, instead of running, we lead them exactly where we want them to go?" Zatvex leaned forward, his crystalline form catching the light. "A trap?" Kennedy nodded. "Yes, sir. A massive one." As Kennedy outlined his plan, in another part of the ship, Dr. Ramirez worked tirelessly in her makeshift lab. She had been studying swarm fragments for days with little sleep. Lieutenant Foster and Clavora entered the lab carrying equipment. "You need to rest, Doctor," Foster said, noticing the dark circles under her eyes. Ramirez shook her head, not looking up from her work. "I'm close to something important. Look at this." She showed them a container where a swarm fragment pulsed with purple light. Next to it, another fragment pulsed at exactly the same rhythm. "They're communicating," Ramirez said, "but there's no signal I can detect between them." Clavora moved closer, her inner lights dimming with concentration. "Quantum entanglement," she said after a moment. "Like our communication systems, but more advanced." Foster looked between the alien scientist and the human doctor. "You mean they're connected no matter how far apart they are? That's how the whole swarm acts as one organism?" "Exactly," Ramirez said with excitement. "And if they use quantum entanglement, we can disrupt it." Clavora finished, her lights flashing brightly. Foster smiled. "And a swarm that can't communicate is just a bunch of ships," Ramirez concluded. The three looked at each other, suddenly energized by the breakthrough. Ramirez reached for her communicator. "We need to tell the admirals right away." Back in the command center, Kennedy's plan was taking shape. The admirals had agreed to his bold strategy, and now officers worked to put the details in place. Captain Martinez studied the star charts with Kennedy. "Vega Sigma system," Martinez said, pointing to a red giant star surrounded by asteroid fields. "Good choice for an ambush. Lots of places to hide ships." Kennedy nodded. "We'll need to sacrifice some systems to make the retreat look real. The swarm needs to believe we're desperate." Martinez frowned. "That means leaving some colonies behind. People will die." "People are already dying," Kennedy said quietly. "This way their sacrifices might end the war." Their discussion was interrupted when Ramirez, Foster, and Clavora hurried into the command center. The excitement on their faces was clear to everyone. "Admirals, we've made a breakthrough," Ramirez announced. "The swarm uses quantum entanglement for instant communication across its fleet. That's why it can adapt so quickly and act as one organism." Foster stepped forward. "And we think we can disrupt it using a combination of our technologies. Human jammers using Meridani crystal amplifiers. Clavora's lights pulsed rapidly as she explained. If successful, it would separate the swarm units from their central control for approximately 12 hours. During that time, they would operate independently without coordination. The command center fell silent as everyone processed this information. Admiral Patel was the first to speak. "How quickly can you build these jammers?" "With proper resources, 2 weeks," Foster replied. Patel turned to Zatvex. "This changes everything. If Kennedy's trap plan includes these jammers, we could destroy not just a portion of the swarm, but strike at its heart," Zatvex finished. The next 2 weeks were a flurry of activity. The combined fleet began a carefully planned retreat toward the Vega Sigma system. Small colonies were evacuated when possible, but some had to be left behind with minimal defenses to maintain the illusion. Meanwhile, Foster and Clavora worked day and night on the quantum jammers. Their collaboration had grown into friendship, and perhaps something more. They learned from each other, Foster teaching Clavora about human improvisation, while she showed him the elegant precision of Meridani engineering. Human stealth ships ventured deep into swarm territory, mapping enemy movements and strengths. One ship, commanded by Captain Frank Daniels, made the most important discovery of all. "We found it," Daniels reported via secure channel. "The Nexus, a massive structure at the center of swarm territory. All swarm ships eventually returned to it." The admirals reviewed the stealth ship's footage with growing excitement. The Nexus was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the largest ships in either fleet, but it appeared less mobile than other swarm vessels. "That's their brain," Patel said, "their central coordinator." In the engineering lab, Foster and Clavora made another breakthrough. By incorporating Meridani living crystal technology into human railguns and missiles, they created weapons that could bypass the swarm's adaptive shielding. "We're calling them shard cannons," Foster explained as he demonstrated the prototype to a group of officers. The crystal fragments changed their energy signature constantly, making it impossible for swarm shields to adapt. On the eve of the operation, Admiral Patel addressed the combined fleet. His face appeared on screens throughout, every ship, human and Meridani alike. "Tomorrow we stop running," he said firmly. "Tomorrow we show the Void Swarm that they made a terrible mistake when they threatened our new friends." The Meridani fought bravely for years, keeping their people alive against impossible odds. Now, with our help, they will reclaim their future. He paused, looking directly into the camera. "Some of us won't return from this battle, but those who fall will do so knowing they helped save not one civilization, but 2. Because make no mistake, if we don't stop the swarm here, Earth will eventually face the same threat the Meridani have endured." Throughout the fleet, humans and Meridani prepared for battle. Engineers made final adjustments to weapons, pilots ran last-minute simulations, medical teams readied for casualties, and in her quarters Captain Martinez looked out at the stars, thinking about how a routine exploration mission had led to this moment, humans and aliens standing together against a common enemy. Whatever happened tomorrow, the universe had changed forever. 2 species from distant parts of the galaxy had found each other, and together, they might accomplish what neither could do alone: survive. The red giant star of Vega Sigma cast an eerie crimson light across the battlefield. The combined fleet had split into 3 battle groups as planned. Admiral Zatvex led the Meridani ships that would serve as bait, making a show of struggling to defend their civilian vessels. Captain Martinez commanded the strike team that would deploy the quantum jammers at key points around the system. Admiral Patel directed the main battle group, hidden within the dense asteroid belt, waiting for the perfect moment to spring the trap. On the bridge of his command ship, Admiral Zatvex's inner lights pulsed with nervous energy. The plan was bold, perhaps too bold, but they had run out of alternatives. "The swarm has entered the system," reported his sensor officer. "Initial count shows over 2,000 vessels." Zatvex had expected a large force, but the number still sent a wave of fear through his crystalline form. "Begin the defensive pattern. Remember to make it look convincing but not too effective. The Meridani ships formed their beautiful geometric formations, the same patterns they had used for years while retreating from the swarm. They needed to appear predictable, to convince the enemy that nothing had changed. The first swarm ships engaged the Meridani defenders. Dark biomechanical vessels with purple energy flowing through their hulls moved with frightening coordination. The Meridani responded with careful, measured defense, effective enough to protect their civilian ships but appearing to strain under the pressure. Meanwhile, Captain Martinez's strike team moved silently through the outer edges of the system. Her ship, the Horizon, led 5 other vessels, each carrying quantum jammers developed by Foster and Clavora. First jamming point reached, Martinez announced. Deploy Jammer 1. A small crystalline device drifted away from the Horizon, its internal lights pulsing gently. Once in position, it began to power up, ready to disrupt the swarm's quantum communications. 1 down, 5 to go, Martinez said. Next point is near the 4th planet. As they approached the 2nd position, sensors blared a warning. Captain Swarm Scouts detected on intercept course. Martinez frowned. This wasn't part of the plan. The scouts shouldn't have noticed them. Evasive maneuvers. We need to deploy all the jammers before we engage. In the asteroid belt, Admiral Patel watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. The swarm was committing more ships than expected, but Zatvex was handling the pressure well, drawing the enemy deeper into the system. Sir, said his communications officer. Captain Martinez reports they've been spotted. Swarm scouts are pursuing them. Patel's expression remained calm, but his mind raced through alternatives. Tell Martinez to continue with the jamming deployment. We'll dispatch a fighter squadron to assist. Before the order could be sent, a new alert sounded. Sir, massive energy signature detected entering the system. The main view screen shifted to show an enormous ship entering the battle area. 3 times larger than any vessel in either fleet, its surface writhed with dark energy and pulsing purple veins. The Nexus, Patel whispered. It's here. This was unexpected. Intelligence had suggested the Nexus rarely left its protected position deep in swarm territory. Either they had been wrong, or the swarm considered this battle important enough to risk its central coordinator. Change of plans, Patel said firmly. Alert all commands. The Nexus is here. We move now. Throughout the asteroid belt, human ships powered up and began to emerge from hiding. Cruisers, destroyers, and carriers moved into attack formation while fighters launched from their bays. The trap was sprung early, but with the Nexus present, they couldn't wait. Martinez's strike team was in trouble. 2 ships had been lost and the Horizon itself had taken damage. Lieutenant Foster worked frantically to keep their systems online as they deployed the 4th jammer. We still need to place 2 more, Foster said, rerouting power to the engines. If we don't get all 6 in position, the disruption field won't be complete. Martinez nodded grimly. We'll get it done. As they approached the 5th position, a swarm ship appeared directly in their path. It was too late to evade. Brace for impact, Martinez shouted as the ships collided. The Horizon shuddered violently. Hull breaches opened across multiple decks. Foster was thrown across the engineering bay, crashing into a bulkhead. Engines offline, reported the helm officer. We're dead in space. Martinez hit the emergency comm button. All hands, abandon. Ship, get to the escape pods. Foster pulled himself up, blood running from a cut on his forehead. The 5th jammer sat secure in its launch bay, ready for deployment. He looked at the ship schematics and made a quick decision. Captain, he called over the comm, I can still launch the 5th jammer and set the ship to drift to the final position. The Horizon itself can be the 6th jammer. Negative, Martinez replied. The automatic systems are damaged. Someone would have to stay and manually activate both jammers. Foster took a deep breath. I know. I'll do it. There was a long pause before Martinez responded. There has to be another way. There isn't, Foster said calmly. The other ships are too far away. This is our only chance. After another pause, Martinez gave the order to evacuate all remaining crew. Foster worked quickly, preparing the Horizon for its final mission. As the last escape pod launched, He sent a private message to Clavora aboard one of the Meridani ships. "I wish we had more time," he wrote simply. The main battle had fully engaged. Human and Meridani ships fought side by side against the swarm. The new shard cannons proved devastatingly effective, tearing through swarm defenses. Yet for every enemy ship destroyed, 3 more took its place. Admiral Patel watched as the battle spread across the system. "Status of the jammers? 4 are in position and active," his tactical officer reported. "The 5th is being deployed now. The horizon is moving toward the final position but shows heavy damage." In the heart of the fighting, Admiral Zetvex directed his ships with precise efficiency. For the first time, the Meridani were not running. They were standing their ground, fighting alongside their human allies. On the damaged horizon, Foster limped to the bridge. Blood soaked his uniform, but determination kept him moving. He strapped himself into the captain's chair and manually guided the crippled ship toward the final jamming position. "Almost there," he whispered to himself as he activated the 5th jammer. The horizon drifted slowly to its final coordinates. Across the battlefield, all eyes turned to the tactical displays. 5 points of light showed the active jammers. They needed just 1 more to complete the disruption field. The horizon reached its position. Foster took one last look at the stars through the cracked view screen, then pressed the activation sequence. The ship's remaining power flowed into the makeshift jammer. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like a wave spreading across the system, the effect became visible. The swarm ships, once moving in perfect coordination, suddenly faltered. Their formations broke apart as each vessel suddenly found itself cut off from the central mind. "The jammers are working," shouted officers across both fleets. "The swarm is disconnected." Admiral Patel didn't waste a moment. "All ships, execute. Attack pattern Omega. Focus fire on the Nexus." The battle had entered its most critical phase. The swarm might be disorganized, but they still outnumbered the Allied fleet. And the clock was ticking. They had 12 hours before the jammers failed. The fate of 2 civilizations hung in the balance. The massive swarm nexus slowly turned as hundreds of weapons locked onto its surface. Without its quantum connection to the rest of the swarm, it could no longer coordinate the perfect defense that had made it seemingly invincible. Still, its size alone made it a formidable opponent. "All ships focus fire on Sector 7, Admiral Patel commanded. That's where the energy readings are strongest." Human and Meridani vessels pounded the Nexus with everything they had. The new shard cannons tore through the outer layers of the massive ship, exposing pulsing organic matter beneath. Conventional weapons followed, targeting the vulnerable areas. The Nexus fought back fiercely. Massive energy beams lashed out, cutting through Allied ships. Defensive drones launched from its surface by the hundreds, swarming smaller vessels. "We're making progress," Patel said, studying the tactical display. "But not fast enough." Dr. Ramirez rushed onto the bridge, her face showing both excitement and concern. "Admiral, I've analyzed the Nexus's energy patterns. It's generating a field that's accelerating the swarm's adaptive abilities. Even with the jammers, they'll start reconnecting in 3 hours instead of 12. Patel's expression darkened. "Can we stop it?" "We have a prototype," Ramirez explained. "A quantum disruptor that could prevent the swarm from maintaining cohesion. But it needs to be delivered directly to the Nexus core." "A suicide mission," Patel said quietly. The Admiral opened a channel to the entire fleet. "We need volunteers for a critical strike mission. Very high risk." Captain Martinez, now aboard one of the rescue ships that had picked up her crew's escape pods, immediately responded. "The horizon may be gone, but I still have a job to finish. Count me in." As preparations began for the strike mission, a small Earth vessel detected an escape pod drifting near the remains of the 5th jamming point. Inside was Lieutenant Foster, barely alive but conscious. He must have ejected at the last minute, the rescue team reported. In the medical bay, Foster regained consciousness to find Clavora beside his bed, her crystalline form dimmed with concern. "I received your message," she said softly. "I also wish we had more time." Foster managed a weak smile. The jammers? Did they work? Yes, Clavora replied. But the effect won't last as long as we hoped. Captain Martinez is leading a strike team to the Nexus core. Foster sat up despite his injuries. I need to tell her something. I saw inside the swarm ship when we collided. There's a way in they won't expect. Captain Martinez led a small, heavily modified shuttle toward the Nexus. Her strike team included both humans and Meridani, each chosen for their specialized skills. The prototype quantum disruptor sat in a secured container at the center of the ship. Captain, came Foster's voice over the comm. I'm sending you coordinates for an access point the swarm won't be guarding. Martinez studied the data with surprise. That's not on any of our scans. Trust me, Foster replied. When our ships collided, I saw inside their structure. It's a maintenance channel for their smaller units. Martinez nodded to her pilot. Change course, we're going in Foster's way. The battle raged around them as the small shuttle approached the Nexus from below. Just as Foster had said, they found an unguarded access point, a small channel leading deep into the massive structure. It's going to be tight, the pilot warned. Just get us as close to the core as you can, Martinez replied. The shuttle navigated, the narrow passage scraping its sides against the biological walls of the Nexus. Strange glowing fluids dripped onto their hull. The deeper they went, the warmer it became. Energy readings are off the charts, reported one of the Meridani scientists. We're approaching the core. They emerged into a vast chamber. At its center pulsed a massive structure, part machine, part living organism. Purple energy flowed through countless veins, spreading outward to the rest of the Nexus. There's our target, Martinez said. Set down as close as you can. The shuttle landed on a platform overlooking the core. The strike team quickly disembarked, weapons ready. So far, they remained undetected, but that wouldn't last. We have 15 minutes to place the disruptor and get out, Martinez said. Move fast. They hadn't taken 10 steps when alarms sounded throughout the chamber. Defensive units emerged from the walls, small, spider-like creatures with sharp limbs and glowing eyes. Cover me, Martinez shouted, grabbing the disruptor container. I'm going for the core. The team formed a defensive perimeter, human and Meridani soldiers fighting side by side. The Meridani used their crystalline technology to temporarily disrupt the swarm's internal systems, while the humans employed unpredictable tactics that confused the defensive units. Martinez ran toward the core, dodging attacks from all sides. A sudden explosion knocked her off her feet, sending the disruptor sliding across the floor. She looked up to see Admiral Zeitvex standing over her, his crystalline form cracked and damaged. Admiral, what are you doing here? She asked in shock. Ensuring our success, Zeitvex replied, helping her up. My ship was damaged. I joined your shuttle during the confusion. Together, they retrieved the disruptor and continued toward the core. As they reached the edge of the control platform, more defensive units poured in. Several struck Zeitvex, creating deep fractures across his body. I'm not going to make it, Zeitvex said, his voice weakening as his inner lights dimmed. Don't say that, Martinez insisted. We're almost there. Zeitvex shook his head. The disruptor must be activated manually. Someone must stay. Martinez looked at the dying admiral, understanding dawning on her face. There has to be another way. There isn't, Zeitvex said, echoing Foster's words from earlier. My people have run for too long. It is fitting that I am the one to end it. He took the disruptor from her hands. Go, Captain. Tell my people that we no longer need to run. Martinez wanted to argue but knew he was right. With a final nod of respect, she turned and ran back toward the shuttle. Admiral Zeitvex, last commander of the once great Meridani fleet, dragged himself to the core. Around him, the Nexus seemed to sense the threat, as energy surged wildly and defensive units swarmed toward him. With the last of his strength, Zeitvex placed the disruptor against the core and activated it. For both our peoples, he whispered. The shuttle escaped the Nexus just as the disruptor detonated. A wave of energy spread outward from the core, cascading through the entire structure. The quantum field collapsed, severing all connections between swarm units, Throughout the system, swarm ships suddenly went dark or began moving erratically. Without central coordination, they became easy targets for the combined fleet. On the bridge of the Artemis, Admiral Patel watched as the Nexus convulsed. Huge sections broke apart, drifting away from the central mass. "Report," he demanded. "The Nexus is breaking up, sir," his tactical officer replied with amazement. "And the swarm ships? They're either shutting down or fighting each other." Across the fleet, cheers erupted as the impossible became reality. For the first time in a decade, the Void Swarm was defeated. 1 year later, Captain Martinez stood on the observation deck of a new ship, the Alliance. Built with both human and Meridani technology, it was the first of its kind, a symbol of the partnership between their species. Beside her stood Lieutenant Foster and Clavora, now rarely seen apart. Together they watched as a fleet of research and military vessels prepared to depart. "Are you ready, Captain?" Foster asked. Martinez nodded. "The Meridani homeworld is out there, waiting to be reclaimed. And after that, who knows what else we'll find together." As the Alliance moved away from the space station, its hybrid engines glowing with blue-white energy, Martinez thought of Admiral Zetvex and all those who had sacrificed themselves to make this moment possible. Two species from different corners of the galaxy, once strangers, now moved forward as one, into a future neither could have achieved alone.